Hello everyone, sorry it's been such a long time since I've been able to post another review, but I have just been insanely busy. I'm going to kick off this couple week stint of doing new reviews with a follow-up on the Logitech keyboard review that I did earlier. A lot of people really seem to find that helpful. The review was for the, actually I have it right here, the review is for the Logitech Bluetooth keyboard that works with the iPad. I had some people asking me via private message and on the links below the video, does it work with the iPhone? And it does. The latest version of iOS it works with, and at least the iPhone 4S it does. So if you wanted to put this down and kind of prop this up and put your iPhone right here and go about it that way, that would work no problem. So that's to answer that question. Somebody else asked me if it ran on batteries. I guess I failed to mention that, but yeah, it does run on batteries. They go right here. I believe it's AA. These actually might be AAA. They are AAA. Looks like they run on a couple of AAA batteries, so forgive me for not mentioning that previously. But I'm going to be comparing this Logitech with a new one that I just got. Again, this is going to be for the iPad. Try to get this out of the way, and it's for the Logitech ultra thin keyboard cover. And a lot of people out there are fascinated or drawn to the idea of having a really thin keyboard that goes over the top of their iPad and don't particularly want one built into a case. Now if you do, then this video is obviously not going to pertain to you, but a lot of people out there want something that they can keep right with their iPad. As a photographer, my bag is weighted down with multiple cameras and lenses, flashes, card readers, that sort of thing. So I need the pocket for the laptop is the only place I have to put any type of electronic device that I'm going to use as a laptop. So given that I can't get my iPad and this bigger keyboard in the same case area in the back of my camera bag, it was causing me some problems. It's also a little bit weighty, which I mentioned before. It's kind of heavy, but it's a great keyboard if you want something really standard to travel with, and of course the protector slash stand is very helpful. But today I'm going to look at the Logitech ultra thin keyboard. It's also Bluetooth compatible. There are some similarities and differences between it and the one that I've already reviewed. So that's what we're going to kind of focus on now. And so I'm going to introduce it in its carry style, which would be this right here. This is it attached to the iPad. You can see that it kind of looks like a really thin laptop. Hopefully you can see that. It's really hard to do these reviews at this angle. When I do knives and other products, I put the camera on the other side of the desk. So I don't have to look up at it, but I just find that when you're reviewing a tool, basically, that is first-person perspective use only, I mean, you're never going to flip this around the other way. I just think it's easier if you, the viewer, can see the product from the vantage point or close to it that you would use when actually utilizing the product. So that's what I'm trying to do here. So as you can see, it's still very thin, even though it does add a little bit of bulk to the iPad. It doesn't double the weight, but it comes slightly close to it. We'll look at some features of it in a second, but I do want to show you a comparison for size purposes. I'm going to get the other Logitech out, and it does taper thinner, which we looked at in the previous. So I got this here teardrop design. It does taper thinner toward the front. It gives it kind of a nice incline, but given that this is thicker than the Logitech keyboard that I previously reviewed, I still want you to kind of see that at its thickest point, the iPad and keyboard are about as thick as the keyboard is at the battery level on the previous. So this is still a really thin package. I mean, are there laptops out there now that would challenge this? Yes, certainly the MacBook Air is thinner than this, lighter, but honestly, if you wanted a MacBook Air or something like that, a netbook, you would buy that. You wouldn't be trying to figure out a way to make your iPad kind of convert into a laptop, so to speak, when using it. So here we go. We're going to flip this open, and the first thing you should recognize right off the bat is this does attach via the kind of the smart cover magnetic strip that's in the iPad. This review is currently being done with an iPad 3. I had an iPad 2 previously. According to this, it will work with the iPad 2 or the iPad 3. I'm also assuming it will work with the iPad 4. And the reason I say that is from my use of these products, they all run the same operating system. So the difference you're going to find is in the ability to attach the iPad to the keyboard via this vertical groove here, which we'll look at in just a second. And because the dimensions of this are very limited, you're not going to be able to use you're not going to be able to use something that's thicker like the iPad 1, or if iPad 5 comes out and it's even thinner or for some strange reason thicker, it's not going to fit in here. So my estimation will be this would work with the fourth rendition of the iPad. I do not own that, so I'm not going to be able to test it in here, obviously. So the first thing is you do want to kind of know here is it does hold by this hinge, but that is all it does. It's basically just to keep it in place, okay, which is a nice feature. I should mention, sorry I forgot to do this, I do have an iCarbons sticker that's designed specifically for the Logitech mini keyboard, ultra thin keyboard, which I have it glued to the top, so you will not see the Logitech logo. And I did this for reasons I'll describe in just a second. I failed to mention that when I showed you the cover. There should be a logo, and this kind of brushed, kind of sheeny. It's not normally like that. If you see the edge right here, that's the actual material, and then the sticker starts right there. So I do have a protective cover on this. Again, it's from iCarbons, but more on that in a second. So when you flip this open, the first thing that you'll definitely want to notice is that this hinge is just to secure it. It's not like a traditional smart cover. You can't flip this backward. It just comes right off. Okay, so the functionality of this hinge right here is literally just to lock it in place. You can see it does it fairly well. But the heft of this, as you can see, if you start to lift the iPad without it, the magnet is not quite strong enough to hold this bulky of a cover. Okay, so the first thing that you want to take note of is the fact that you're not going to want to go swinging this around. You need to use two hands at all time. Kind of annoying, but again, it's there just to kind of lock it in place. So that the cover doesn't slide off. So with regard to that functionality, it's really good. But again, when you're flipping this open, you will find that the weight of the keyboard itself will pull it away from the iPad. So it's not designed to be flipped backwards or used for long periods of time. It's once you get it open, basically you do yourself a service and take it apart. All right, so let's take a quick little tour of what's on the device, and we'll go from there. The device is very, very thin, very lightweight. It's heavier than obviously a smart cover, but honestly, some of the backs of some of the cases that they make for the iPads now aren't any lighter than this. And that's saying quite a bit considering that there's a lithium-ion battery through this top part right here. Okay, so while we're on the side, we'll take a look at this. It's got a micro USB charger port here, followed by an on-off switch for the Bluetooth activation, and then a Bluetooth linking button, connect button right here. Along the perimeter, that's it. Okay, so all your functionalities right here. As you can see, profile-wise, very thin. There it is next to my finger, and my fingers aren't the largest in the world. My palms. This is a very, very small and light design. The edge. Let's try to get this up there. You can see this little hump right here, the edge along the perimeter. It is not nearly as bad as the zag. The zag was, when I tried it, at least the last version I tried, it was very vertical, very kind of sharp. One of the things I didn't like it versus, why I didn't get a previous iPad cover style keyboard before. But this is rounded, and as you can see, it's flush with the keys basically. The keys are slightly lower, so you're not going to have an issue with it sticking way up or running your hand into it. So anyway, so there you have it. Your key format layout is fairly similar as before. You have I call them hotkeys, but sorry about that. The shortcut keys up here at the top, if you use the function button, these perform multiple functions. We'll take a look at in just a second, just as the previous Logitech did. Then you have basically a full-size keyboard. A couple of things you will notice that are kind of aggravations are the buttons along the edges are really small. The absolute biggest issue I have with this keyboard is the delete button. Your backspace button is as small as a number button at the top. And if you're used to another keyboard, i.e. this Logitech, the delete button is huge. And then when you're typing and you jump up there with your pinky to do a delete, it's huge. On this one, you have to have particularly good aim. I miss it all the time when I'm deleting. And obviously, if you're using a keyboard, you're doing extensive writing. I'm basically a photojournalist, and when I'm doing my writing, I use the delete key quite a bit. It is annoyingly small. I'm just going to throw that out there. It's annoyingly small. If you're sitting there typing, you do that, you're very likely to hit the backslash key or the plus equal key, volume up key. It's annoying. Small frustration, but you do get used to it. But I did just want to point that out. So let's get on to functionality real quick. I will say the keys are slightly smaller. Whoops, sorry. The keys are slightly smaller than those on the Logitech. This other Logitech board here, they're slightly smaller. The biggest difference is they're a lot closer together. I don't find that typing on them I'm missing too much, but you know, it can happen. It's not nearly as normal or as comfortable as a standard size keyboard, but you have to make sacrifices when you want something that's literally the width of your iPad. All right, so how does this connect? Well, this sits right in the groove and you're done. Now, if you heard that click, that's because the keyboard here is also utilizing the magnetic strip that's in the back of the iPad. So it locks into place. Now, the cool thing about that is you can pick this up and move it around. I wouldn't fling it, but you can certainly use this when you need to as far as moving it around, things like that. So limitation number one, like we mentioned with the previous Logitech, it had various viewing angles. This only gives you the one. It's about 60 degrees back here, so it's a comfortable view. I don't have any problems with it myself, but there's no way to adjust it. So you are limited here. So I leave my Bluetooth on all the time up here because I am attaching this iPad. So in the corner, I know it's hard to see from that angle, but I do have the little Bluetooth icon. Let me try to get that in view for you. It's going to be tough at the camera angle I have. Maybe I'll flip it upside down. I want you to see, let me get right there. See it when I flip the Bluetooth on. See how it blinks and now it's solid? That means it's connected. So that's all it takes. Once you've connected this, you're good to go. Open up a writing app. This is IA Writer. And a tap, and I hope you can see that from that angle. Maybe I'll zoom in on in post, but I have no problems typing. It's connected. Just as before, the command button works fine. Command A, delete, type some more stuff. Command A, Command C, Command V to copy and paste. All that works just as before. Your keys are just a little bit smaller. Some nifty things that this does do, and I'm going to try, let me try to hop up here and zoom in on this. I have to zoom back out in a second. I've just typed a bunch of malarkey here on the screen, as you can see, but one of the cool features is, let me slide it up, that they've added to this keyboard that's not on the previous, that some people find useful. Since you don't have a mouse, you do have the arrow keys that you had previously, right? And they're the same size as on the other Logitech. So you can move up and down and back and forth and so on. So let me actually type a literal sentence here so you can see it. This is a test to type on this really cool keyboard. Oop. All right, period. So that's what I just typed. Now, hope you can see this. If you use you don't have a mouse, so you're constantly having to jump around this way if you're wanting to do stuff. So Logitech added this really cool highlight feature. The 4 and 5 buttons right here have these little, it looks like a flag upside down or the top of a flagpole, depending on, they're inverse of each other. One goes this direction, one goes this direction. What that allows you to do is, all I'm going to do is hold the FN button and press those. I want you to see what happens on the screen. All right, let the light auto adjust there. As you can see, I'm at the beginning of the word this. Oh, I accidentally highlighted it, okay? The cursor's at the beginning of the word this. If I hold the function button and go to the one, number 4, and select the cursor bar and then the forward flag, it'll highlight, whoop, went the wrong button, sorry about that. Go back here, hit this and the function 5 button. It highlights that word. If you hit it again, it goes to the next word, and the next word, and the next word. If you go the other way, it'll back up and invert itself. So you can actually highlight portions, and you can use the Command C, the Command V to copy and paste. But you can also use the scissors at number 6, the paste at number 7 and 8, and so on. So if you decide you didn't like that, you could copy it, which is 7, and then cut it, which is, I'm sorry, FN7. Copy, cut, and then you could jump down to the end here with the cursor and hit the paste button with the clipboard, and it's pasted it. So kind of a nifty feature, and I've actually used it quite a bit, because if you want to move part of your sentence, if you do a lot of rearranging your text for things, you have to get up here and you have to press and hold, you have to hit select, and then you have to take this end thing. It's basically doing all this without having to use the screen. So if I go here again and press the FN button in 5, I go forward. And if I press the 4 button and go backward, I can select things and then do just the traditional things that I would do when I'm editing my text. So it's actually a pretty cool little feature. But you know, the keyboard is going to depend, the usability is going to depend on the size of your fingers, your preferences for key layout, how close or wide they are. I like it. I don't have any issues with it mostly. The delete key and return key sometimes, but the delete key size is really a problem. So there you have it. I'm not going to go through too much else because it's very similar to the other Logitech. I did want to do some comparisons there to kind of show you basically how it looks and how it functions, what some of the keys are that are different from the previous version, and so on. So let me hop back up here and zoom out. And as you can see, the angle on it is 60 degrees supposedly on the back. You can see it's not falling out, so that is kind of a helpful feature. So to wrap up this video that's already getting kind of lengthy, sorry when I go into a lot of detail on these things, they kind of get that way. I did make a list of pros and cons over here I wanted to kind of go through with you and kind of let you know what I thought about this. So I'm going to start with the cons, because the cons are going to be the things that should jump out of you right at the most. They're going to deter you from wanting to purchase this or use it, or, you know, I was hesitant on buying this because I didn't have one on display. I didn't know how the keys were going to feel, and so on. So I kind of took a gamble knowing that I could return it within so many days without having a problem. All right, so the cons. The charging cable, which I'll do a cut at the end. The charging cable for this is small. It's like this long. And the design of this, ironically, is to be used with charging off of a current existing laptop through the USB charging, which really kind of makes no sense because a lot of people are using this as a standalone. So if you use it with your iPad charger or your iPhone charger with the USB slot, it works just fine. No problems with regard to that, but something to consider. You're going to have to use the same block that you use for your iPad or your iPhone or some other USB charger to charge it. It is very short. It has to be right next to the plug. Again, I get that they want to keep everything minimalistic, but making that longer would be helpful to a lot of people. So as a standalone unit, it seems kind of weird that the only way to charge it is with the help of an existing power supply. I guess they assume you would have it with your iPad. So there you go. You can't use this stand with a case on the back. Because this is so thin, you cannot put a case on the back of this and pop this in place. Now I have an invisible shield sort of film back here, and it keeps it protected pretty well. This is actually made by Armor Suit, which I got off iPad. It's actually, I mean, off of Amazon. It's actually very good. I actually like it better than the Zag and Ghost Armor even. I actually like it. It's pretty inexpensive, but that's all you can use because nothing else, even the thinnest back cases, will prevent you from being able to put this in place. So something to consider there. You can only use film or leave it naked. It's only as a protected lid is what I mentioned earlier. The hinge is too heavy. So we've already covered that. But I did want to say that if you do use a film on the front, the edges where these little rubber feet are that kind of grab can leave little indentions in your you know, your film if you use a film, especially one that's more industrial on the front of it. Not a big deal. You know, you wipe the smudges off and it's fine, but it will leave little indentions sometimes along here. I took the iCarbon stickers off the inside because I felt that they were making some streaking. And since I've removed those, I haven't had any problems on here. But again, this has got a screen protector on it. I didn't notice any problems with it when I didn't have the screen protector on it. So let me move this out of the way. Sorry again for bumping that. This is an awkward angle, as I mentioned. The other problem is it slides. Now, I mentioned this as something I didn't like about the Zag earlier when I was using the keyboard. This keyboard has those rubber traction to keep it from sliding. This one, when you move it, you know, it doesn't do it. It stays well pretty good, but you know, if you have a tendency to drift or something when you write, then this does slide around. Okay, there's not a lot of adhesion there, but that's why I added this iCarbon cover. I added this smart cover so that if it got scuffed up, I'd be scuffing up a sticker and not the actual cover of the case. And there's not even any scuff marks on this, so you might be fine without it. But again, it is slick, so it doesn't stay in place, and that's one kind of minor quibble there. We talked about the keys being smaller and closer together, especially the delete key, so keep that in mind. Ironically, the arrow keys are the same size, which I've already discussed. The other thing is, with a built-in battery like this, if the battery does go dead, you're out of luck. You just got to stop and charge or to use the built-in keyboard on your iPad, because you know, there's no way to go out and get some AA or AAA batteries and put them in here. But I don't really have an issue with that, and I'll tell you why in a second. It's expensive. That's the last thing. It's about $100 versus the about 40 or 50 you might pay for something like this. It's lighter. It's got a lot of convenience into it, but it's smaller. It doesn't have the comfort of these keys. The responsiveness is slightly less on this, but that's the trade-off you make when you purchase something thinner. Now the pros, because it sounds like I'm bashing this thing. I love it. I love this keyboard. I use it when I'm on the road because, as I said, when I put this with this, it's still very thin. It fits in the laptop sleeve of any bag, no problem. And it's got everything I need to go. And if I don't need it, you know, I just lay it to the side and I use the iPad as I normally would. So it's pretty cool. One thing I did notice that in the, I forgot to mention a functionality. If you go to something like Messages and you wanted to use like emojis or something, it does have this international keyboard recognition right here. But if you press the FN button in that, it just says English US. But if you pull up your FN and use this button, pull up your internal keyboard and hit that same button, then you get your emojis. Okay, if you happen to have them built in. Not a big deal, but it does have the international icon, but it does not bring up emojis. But if you're switching back and forth, that would be useful. Again, that's not really a pro or con, just something I forgot to mention. So it's super convenient. It's smaller than most laptops, and it stores in a single pocket with you know, an external keyboard, which is awesome. So you're paying for smallness and convenience. But it's super convenient. It works really well. It does what it's supposed to do. So with that regard, it's awesome. The battery life is unexpectedly good. They say it could last several weeks depending on use, standby time. I've only charged this thing twice since I've had it, and the little icon, the little light right here, is never lit up. So basically, it'll flash at you when it's going getting low. It'll let you know you need to charge it. It's never done that. Now, I'm not making a claim that's saying it's a 9 million hour battery life. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying that for a built-in rechargeable battery, it is exceptionally good. And if you charge it about as often as you charge your iPad, you'll never have it go dead. It's insanely good considering how thin it is. It doesn't do a whole lot, obviously, it just functions this in the Bluetooth connectivity, but it's superb on battery life. The magnetic lock is helpful right here. There is a rubberized groove to keep from scuffing your iPad. The magnetic strip there, like I said, is a plus because it does allow you to move it if you had to get up real quick because you spilt something or anything like that. There you go. It's much better than the third-party versions I've seen on eBay. I work at a university. A couple of students have come in and showed me the ones they paid $30 or $40 for. They have loose keys. The keys are paper thin. Keys stop functioning after a couple of weeks. I'm not trying to diss any third-party out there because I know that a lot of third-party manufacturers can make these just as good as the original manufacturers. But my experience has been the Logitech does stand up to the test of time. It's very, very good. I think the biggest benefit is if you're looking for something that's thin, light, kind of does what you've seen this do and what you would expect it to do, then it's a very good investment. If you're an attorney, if you're a college student that doesn't want a traditional laptop in class, or you already own an iPad and you want something to pair with it, if you do a lot of travel, especially international, if you spend a lot of time in hotels, if you just use your iPad to do a lot of iMessaging, a lot of web surfing, you type a lot of papers, documents, anything like that where you're going to do extensive typing, it's very good. Having said that, this overall in performance of actually typing is the better keyboard, hands down. It's just not as cramped. It's exactly like the Apple one that I showed in the previous video. But if you're looking for thin and light, if you're looking for something that will double as a smart cover, if you're looking for something that just simply functions, it gets you a keyboard and your iPad in a laptop slot. It looks kind of sleek and sexy. It matches the iPad. Again, without the iCarbon, it still matches. It matches pretty darn close. Logitech did a great job of making the lid of their keyboard look like the bottom of the iPad. And you're willing to go without a back shell. That's going to be a deal breaker for a lot of people. Now, you can do this. I did for about 3 days and I got tired of it. You can put a shell on that has a smart cover groove cut out, and you can use the two together, right? So that's not an issue. You can use the two together. But before you go to insert the iPad, you need to pop that shell off, throw it to the side, and then stick it in. All right. I do have one. I could demonstrate it. I think you get the idea. The video is already going longer than most people were hoping, I'm sure. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. If you're looking for something thin and light, I do recommend it. I recommend it over the Zag one that I previously used. I've had no problems with Logitech ever. Not to say that they won't have issues, but obviously I speak only from personal experience. Do not buy or not buy this product based on anything I've said. Look at other reviews. I think it's the smart thing to do, but I can honestly recommend it. I use it all the time. It's very convenient. And for $100, I think it's $100 well spent. I've spent $100 on a lot worse things in my life that weren't nearly as practical and I didn't use on an almost daily basis. So with regard to that, I think it's really a great item, and I hope that if you get one, you do enjoy it as well. So right after this, I will do a quick edit and show you the charger cable and how short it is. And then after that, it's sayonara. So take it easy, everybody. Until next time, be safe and God bless. Okay, as promised, there is the USB charging cable. It's a little bit longer than I remember. I had to dig it out of my bag. So, as I mentioned, if you wanted to charge this in a wall outlet, you probably could if you stood the Ultraslim keyboard on end and charged it that way. Again, you need to use your USB adapter that comes with one of your Apple products or other product that uses USB to charge. And to give you an idea of about how long this is, it's a little more than 1/3 the length of the standard white cable that comes with an iPhone or an iPad. So just to give you an idea. But there it is. Again, the micro USB to standard USB, how you're going to charge your Ultraslim keyboard. Take care.